Hello and good afternoon, everyone. This is Julianne Grant from Razor Leaf Corporation. We welcome you today to our Tech Tuesday for June 2024. Today I'm here with Milan Obradovic and Rodney Coffey, who head up our Aras team. And Milan's going to take us through what's new in release 31 for Aras Innovator. A couple of housekeeping notes. We are recording this, and this will be up on our YouTube site shortly after this event, and we'll be sending out the recordings to everyone who registered. Also, if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the questions panel, and we'll be sure to answer them at the conclusion of Milan's presentation. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Milan.
All right, thanks, Julianne. So everyone, welcome back to Tech Tuesday. As usual, we'll get started with just going over our agenda really quickly. So first, really, we're just gonna be focusing on what's new in release 31. What are the new and exciting things that have came out in this new release? Then we're gonna follow that up with showing what important things are kind of hitting end of life at this point, whether it's Aras releases and also some Aras applications as well. And then, as usual, we'll do some Q&A, and then we'll hand it off to Rodney to sort of wrap up our call and get everyone informed about what future events we have planned. So what is the big new things here in Innovator 31? So the first big one, those of you who attended ACE might have seen some of this, but really the first big one here is configurable web services. So it is a visual interface to allow admins, business users, really people who aren't skilled developers to go and publish custom REST APIs, so we can push Aras data externally out of the system. Really, if you don't want to code and make it as advanced as you need to, you can build a full API with no code, no AML, no SQL. You don't need to know any of that programming language to publish an API. So really cool and exciting stuff there. Following up, we have dynamic context sharing on dashboards. So those of you might have remembered our first couple walkthroughs of the new Aras dashboarding. And I believe one of the questions that came up was, how can we get our widgets to interact with each other? If I select one project, can I see my project plan in another widget? And with release 31, we now have that functionality, and we're really able to see those widgets dynamically update as we click around our dashboard, which is really cool to see. Alongside that, some sad news for those of you that are using self-service reporting. That will be sunset as of now, the release of Innovator 31. So if you're currently using self-service reporting on anything 30 and under, no need to worry yet. You're still able to use that reporting, but when you do upgrade past 31, there will be some migration for your self-service reports into different reporting options, and we'll get into that a little bit as well. So first things first, configurable web service. What is it? What is configurable web services? And really what it is a visual interface for publishing custom APIs. And really Aras's goal with this whole application was to make it as low code as possible. Not everyone is a genius DB administrator. Not everyone has the time to learn AML or really have the ability to write comprehensive SQL statements. And really what configurable web service allows us to do is build these APIs without knowing any of that. It's really just point, click, select what I need. And that's going to be pushed out into our external sources. And also, when we're exporting those JSON files to be picked up by other systems, we don't need to do any manual editing or authoring for those JSON files. They'll be automatically generated when that API is called with whatever metadata you request. So you might be thinking, what is a web service? What is an API? So figure give a little bit of context there. So really, web services allow data exchange between two different, or not really two, but different applications. So whether it be Aras and a web app, or really whatever else you want to do, and that's going to be using various different file formats to output that information, whether it be XML, JSON, anything along those lines. So really, what is an API? That's really just the rules or protocols that are going to allow for your applications to exchange data, the features, and specific functionality between the two systems. So with that in mind, why is this important? Why is this significant to us? And really what this allows us to do is it really enables our admins to be a little more powerful in their administrative skills. So if you don't have the time to go to the developing solutions course or really dig into the Aras database, you can build some queries and cool external applications with limited SQL, limited AML, and programming knowledge, and really can build some custom endpoints to be pinged within your Aras environment. It's going to enable these same admins to connect these endpoints to custom web apps. So whether it be something like we're show today with an UI bakery, it's a really simple low-code app modeling service. Any other web app, it could be custom built as well. But it just makes it really easy to set up these endpoints and push that out to external applications. So for example, you can build simple portals in this case for part status. You can build a portal for all your change orders, quality issues, and so on. And let users externally from the system or give them a different UI and different functionality when it comes around your business's data. Another key piece of this is it really makes integrations a lot more low code. We don't have to go in and write our own APIs. We can use the configurable web service to build those endpoints and whatever integration middleware, whether it's Clover or if we're doing an end-to-end, we can just ping that new endpoint that we created using configurable web and just do a full low code integration in that sense as well. So moving on from configurable web, dashboards. Finally getting, not finally, but we're getting some more functionality around dashboards. And what 31 gives us is the ability to pass context between widgets. So for example, if I were to select a row in the said search grid widget, it can influence the data that's being displayed by a tree grid or a report widget. And this I don't have to go in and manually modify the context item for my tree grid view in order for that tree grid to be updated. So based on configuration, we could have search grids be receivers of that information. We can have them push those out. And tree grid views and reports tend to be the consumers of that context. So really exciting stuff there. Really gives you a lot more functionality around your widgets and your dashboards and makes them a little more interactive. And we'll get to see a little bit of how that's configured and how that's done later on. So another minor enhancements, just wanted to note that there were new releases to these items, and really the release notes are pretty light. Digital Twin Core had sort of a refresh in terms of certification. So those of you using Digital Twin are interested in it. It was initially released with 14 as well, and there hasn't been any updates there. So Aras just recertified the application, ensured that it was good to go with release 31, and also handled a few little bug fixes as well. The same thing with Office Connector Office Connector. There has been continued releases for Office Connector over the last couple of years. This one is truly just a little bit of cleanup around bugs. No major functionality changes there as well. All right, so alongside that, we have some important end-of-life information, some sad news for self-service report users, but also sad news for people who are currently using 12SP18 and under still. Keep in mind, you're currently running an unsupported version of Aras, and please get into the upgrade queue, reach out to Razorleaf, reach out to Aras, and we can help you guys get into that queue and start working on your upgrade process. But our first release of 14 Plus has finally reached its end of life. So release 14 at the end of May, its lifespan has ended, but 15 and 16 are also coming soon. So June at the end of this month, July, or June at the end of this month, for 15 at the end of this month, June, 16 at the end of July, those will be also reaching end of life. And then 17 will be within September, by the end of September will be within end of life state. So keep in mind, and this might be something we go over in a future Tech Tuesday here, once you're past that 14 stepping stone, those upgrades are going to be handled by you and your administrators, and also your support team like Razorleaf or whoever your reseller is. So those releases are not through the Aras upgrade services. Those are going to be patches that you can import to your environment using the Aras upgrade tool. So we'll do probably a refresher to that upgrade process soon, since a lot of these early releases are starting to go end of life, and get you guys some more information around there. Alongside that, self-service reporting. So self-service reporting is going to be no longer supported on any future Aras releases, starting with release 31. So all reporting will either need to be done through your basic XSLT reports within Aras. Aras is really pushing you towards the new Aras dashboards and reporting that we went over the past couple Tech Tuesdays, and also external reporting services like the likes of SQL Server reporting service and any other external services that you might use for reports. So a bit of reasoning behind this. So self-service reporting, for those of you that didn't know, is sort of built on an external application that is starting to lose compatibility with the newer releases of Aras. So sort of making it necessary to move on from the application. So with that, let's sort of circle back to what we were showing earlier around configurable web and also our dashboards. So to begin, let me get into our Aras environment. So you might have seen this screenshot for an external part dashboard that I showed earlier. And this is sort of a really simple example of what we can build by pulling out Aras Innovator data. So to build this application, I had a configurable web service endpoint that I pinged and then pulled out all of this data. So I specified that I wanted to pull my part number, revision, name, type, and the current state of that item. And if I scroll through, I can go and find all of the items within my demo database here. And this is really useful for those of you that need to access part metadata that don't necessarily have licenses to the system. Maybe other users that are on the shop floor maybe just need to see their part items, or just a simple change administrator app. So you don't have to necessarily log into Aras. You can take a look at your external app here. So to do that, I created a endpoint using configurable web service. So in this application UI Bakery, we have the ability of linking an endpoint and as a data source to build these applications and populate all those fields, those tables, and those graphs as well. And so this URL here is something that is then going to be generated through configurable web. So let's go ahead and take a look at just a bit of how that's configured. So if I were to go to administration and external access, we could take a look at our first web service here that we created. And that's going to be our part share. Let me quickly relog back in. There we go. So when we're creating our web service, we're first going to define our title, obviously, but also our endpoint name. So this endpoint is going to be what is appended to our URL to ping exactly what we want, the specific endpoint. So we're going to have our endpoint name, and we're also going to have the version of that endpoint. So when we go to configure this endpoint, when we need to select exactly what we want to pull out, what metadata we want to see, it's as simple as selecting a specific item to be a part of this web service, what actions we want to perform around this, whether it's specifically just a retrieval like we're showing in that initial business app, or if we even want to make additions to parts or edits from that external source. So when we specify our web service item, we can also specify any properties, relationships that we want to pull out, add, or be able to manipulate. So in this case, we specified item number, name, revision, class, and state, as you saw in our UI Bakery app. But we also will always pull out the ID of these items. That's going to be our way, the way Aras runs, to find those specific item instances. So in this specific web service, I was only pulling out initial parts, but if I wanted to, I could add any relationship on the part item type. I can pull out the changes tab, I can pull out my AML tab, and so on, to make that information available to an external source. Alongside that, if there's any methods that need to run upon pinging that web service, we can link those here as well. So while it's mostly low code, there is a way to still get some flexibility and get some business logic behind these endpoints. So once I'm done configuring my endpoint, it's going to create that URL, and I can specify that it's an active endpoint. But when it comes to authentication, we need to then generate an API key. So when an API key is available or is created, we're going to give it a specific name. We're going to specify the API key will be auto-generated. You're going to have to save that locally, and then it will be hidden. And then it's going to create a user in the system. So this user in the system will basically operate as any other user, but specifically be used for your external access. So in this case, I have a full access part share. It's going to create a user in the system and also an identity. And this identity, since it's a full access identity, I assign it to all employees, and it has access to all of my my parts. So if we want to restrict what's available to these external sources and these endpoints, it functions essentially the same way as restricting any user from seeing any sort of file or document or item in the system. So when we take a look at our dashboarding new functionality here, really it's awfully simple. So if you remember from some of our previous Tech Tuesdays, and we can do a little bit of a review here on how widgets are configured, the new widget templates that are available, especially for search grid widgets, have a new tab available. So if we take a look at a widget template, we see that we still have our same properties that we're gonna pull in. We can specify we want a part, if we want a favorite search to manipulate how that search grid is going to pull in. But we also now have shared properties. So that's not a good example. Let's get projects. So we also have shared properties. So if we take a look at our projects widget here, we see that we're going to share this selected row ID. So essentially the ID of the item I select in that widget, we're going to pass that on as a string to other widgets. So to see that in action, we can go and take a look at our all projects widget and also our project details widget here on our project dashboard. So if I went and selected 1326, it's going to update this tree grid view here on the right to accept that 1326 project plan. The same way as if I selected 27, 28, and this context could be spread not just to one widget. We can have it influence, maybe if there's a related part, we can pass on that related ID of that part from that selected row and have it show somewhere else. And there's a lot of different functional ways to implement this that were shown at ACE, and require a few little code tree updates and custom JavaScript to get some things working there. But for the most part, to configure this, it's really specifying what property we want to pass between widgets. So in this case, our selected row ID, and then it's really specifying that this widget is going to be going to be dynamically enabled. So in this case, it's a tree grid view for project details, and project details as a query definition as a tree grid view is going to consume a project item. So in this case, since this is a grid for all projects, when I select a project, it's going to pass the ID of that project into my tree grid view and automatically refresh as I select. So with that, that's about the functionality that I was looking to show with the new releases of Aras today. Obviously, with all of these new functionalities, they're going to be continually improved upon over the next few releases. So it should be a continued evolution of the demonstration, especially around configurable web services. With that, I'll take us back to our deck and open the floor up for any questions about what was shown today.
Great, thanks, Milan. I do have a question here. Hold on. Just pause this out because I can't read it. Okay. Is it possible to add context menu items to dashboard, like complete task from dashboard? The example he's sharing. You have a dashboard for a user in basket, and it's linked to a dashboard for a project to see where the activity is in the project view.
Yeah, so in this case, probably a slight misstep on my side. I don't have any active project tasks, but from this active task pane here, I can vote a task close. So you have the ability to interact with, it's not just a search grid, it's going to have some functionality on top of it as well. So if this was a project task, I could sign off from it as well from my in basket. So that answered that.
Yeah, let us know if that answered your question, Etienne. Another question for you. What is the plan of migration from self-service reports to other reporting methods?
Yeah, so at the moment, with this being the initial release, or the initial release without self-service reporting, obviously that's a concern. So the one issue with migration between these two reports is that the queries are set up a bit differently. If you're a user of self-service reporting, you're familiar that there's sort of its own query builder built into the application. With the new Aras reporting, those queries are set up as query definitions, through your Aras admin configuration tab there. So at the moment, it's going to be a relatively manual process to move those things over, but I've had some conversations with Aras product managers that there's going to be a potential migration tool in the future to speed up that process.
Okay, great. Another question for you. Can context be passed between custom widgets?
Yeah, so when it comes to a custom widget, it sort of refers to one that's not a standard tree grid view, report, search grid widget. And that can be something like an iframe for a report from an external source, or an iframe for a 3D visualization item. And that's something that's possible through making use of some custom JavaScript code and modifications to the code tree. So documentation for that right now is a little light from the the Aras users, but I spoke with the product manager in the process of building this demonstration, and release 32 will have a lot more context around that custom functionality.
Okay, great. Thank you. Anyone has any questions, just please put them in the questions panel. Be happy to answer them as they come in. So it looks like I got one more question here. How does configurable web services handle file sharing?
Yeah, so at the moment, configurable web services is primarily used to export metadata. But within the next couple of releases, so I think release 32, we're going to have a lot more flexibility around what we can do with the configurable web services editor. So that be doing file uploads from an external source, or changing the way authentication works, so we don't have to create a bunch of individual users for each endpoint. So that file handling should be coming within the next few releases here.
Great. Any more questions? Just give it a minute. Everything comes in. Okay, I'm not seeing anything, so you're all welcome to follow up directly with Milan if you have more specific questions after this broadcast. All right, back to you.
All right, so at this point, we can head to our wrap-up stage, sort of give some excitement about our future events, and I'll hand that off to Rodney to sort of talk about our subscriber user group, and I'll close out with sort of already did a little sneak peek of the next Tech Tuesday. So Rodney, you can take it from here.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, no slides today, but I did want to let everybody know that we are looking at our Q3 Aras user group, which is always our in-person event. We've had a really good time with that the last couple of years and had really good attendance and sessions from our clients. And this year we're going to have a few Aras guest speakers as well. So we just locked those down last week. So we're really excited about this event. This went so well years past. We've extended at least a half day. It'll give us one more evening to kind of collaborate and work through the things that we come up with through the day with our clients. So that's going to be October 7th through the 9th. The 7th, we will have a welcome reception. The 8th, we will have a full day of sessions, dinner that evening, and then a half day on the 9th to do roundtable and wrap up. We'll be at the Netherlands Hotel, the Netherlands Hilton in Cincinnati, Ohio this year. So I'm also looking for prospects and clients that want to attend. We may do some other things around the event as well if people are going to be in town. So we'll formally open registration for the event next week. I've already had some people reach out and tell us they're eager to register and make it out. So we're going to get that formal registration out next week. And we should be releasing a formal agenda with our presenters here in the next couple weeks as well. So I'm just really excited about that. And then we're going to continue on with Tech Tuesday. This has been a great event for us to kind of spread awareness and make you aware of the things that are coming in the product. So our next Tech Tuesday will be August 27th, and we'll be covering release 32, or I say Milan has carried the load here on all the new releases. So yeah, I think we're still, I think in a final thought for those that are on the call, we're still looking for feedback on the self-upgrade process. So if you're going through that self-upgrade process, or you've been through that yourself, we'd love to hear from you. So feel free to reach out to myself or Milan, or you can reach out to the generic sales@RazorLeaf email that's posted on the slide there. We just love to hear how that's going for you, what types of challenges you're having, and of course, any way we can help. Always feel free to reach out. So with that, I think we will close and let everybody enjoy.
Yeah, second, Ronnie, we had one more question come in while you were talking. So if we could just take 1 minute and have Milan respond to this. Can you interact graph segments between widgets if you click on a bar chart and have a breakdown to a pie chart to drill down into more detail?
So if I select a pie chart, so essentially if I were to interact with, say, a graph widget, I'm selecting a pie chart that shows, I don't know, that's an interesting case. That's something I'll have to poke at. So I'm thinking your question would say, if say I have a pie chart for, say, all ECOs, I select that pie chart, it's going to highlight, say, these are the 32 ECOs that are in work. That's something I'll have to take a look at. I'm not sure if it's ready for that yet, since we're really only, I think it's really only specified right now that those grid widgets are going to be passing context along. But that's something we can use as an exploratory case and maybe touch on for the next release of dashboarding.
Okay. Great. And one other comment that Etienne made was just that the self-upgrade, the overriding the method config is an issue. So I don't know, maybe it's something you can follow up with him directly on.
Yeah, I will. If we actually identified that a few months ago, and Dennis Lininger was kind of running with that for us. So we were going to put out a public, sort of a public fix for that out in a blog article. I'll follow up with Dennis to see if he's posted that. But we also let Aras support know, and they, so Aras support is well aware of that. So I would log when we let Aras support know about it. They weren't sure that it was going to be a problem for everybody. Let's put it that way. So I would say if that is a problem you're having with the self upgrades, please log a ticket and in with their support. That way they can see that that is a problem that every customer is facing. We've not had a customer that's done a self upgrade that hasn't run into that. We think it's a problem with every single self upgrade. We need to get those tickets logged. So Aras also believes that.
Okay, great. Excellent. Well, thank you so much. Thanks to Milan for a great presentation today, and thanks Rodney for sharing some more information about our upcoming user group in Cincinnati. This recording will be sent out in the next 48 hours, and should you need anything else, please reach out to Rodney and Milan directly. Thanks, and have a great afternoon.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks. Bye.